Robert. We've spoken over the phone, but I don't think I've introduced myself to you.
All right, good to meet you.
My pleasure.
So how long you been with the IR?
Oh, I started with them a year ago in July.
And where did you come from?
Oh, I was the publisher of the paper in Big Timber for 4 years before that.
Oh, all right.
And I've been in Cascade, Three Forks, Bozeman, and Livingston as well.
You've been all around.
Few papers.
Yeah.
Susie Mossness has commented that Big Fork lost an awful, or Big Timber lost an awful lot when you left.
She's a wonderful person. Please tell her I'm the next time you see her.
I will.
Thank you.
Okay, it's 1:30. You're on, Mike.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Mike Conti, for the record. I think everybody knows that. You're on recording. We're here today to have a public hearing, I believe, on the spending of Broadwater County's Title III forestry funds. And we have to recap here, back on the 30th of September, the Commissioners passed a resolution number 8, which is attached on the back there. It tells how much money we received for the 2012 fiscal year. It tells where the money comes from, why does Broadwater County get it. Third whereas tells us how that money is limited by law to be spent. And then the resolution was we proposed to spend it on reimbursing the county Sheriff's Office, Fire Department for responding to emergency services on federal land. That can be federal or any other public lands, BLM or BOR or anything like that. After that, we were going to spend half of it on updating our county community wildfire population protection plan, which I'll talk about a little bit more, and then the balance of that was going to be spent under activities for the Firewise or Fire Safe Communities program that encourages people to live on the hill and be prepared for wildfire and to prepare for that area around their home, usually about 30 feet, up to 100 feet, that ignition zone around the home. If there a fire happens, we try to have survivable space around the home so that the fire department, the home will survive in a wildland fire without having a fire truck and threatening firefighters' lives to protect their property. And that's the goal. And today, on the 30th of September, it started a 45-day public comment period. We had legal notices in the paper. The only comments I got back during that 45-day period was from David Nunn from the Helena National Forest, fire management officer for the forest. And he said that he supported your intentions to spend that money on those projects. He thought that was in compliance with federal law. And we're going to update the existing community wildfire population protection plan, which was last updated in 2005. It's a tri-county plan between Lewis and Clark County, Jefferson County, and Broadwater County. We have been working together since 1985 in the tri-county fire safe working group. And we have meetings once a month over there. I think Commissioner Overt was there last month. And where all 3 counties are in the process of updating the plan. What the plan does is you build a coalition of different people between local government, the rural fire departments, the Forest Service, Montana DNRC, and other federal agencies that respond for wildland fire. And we identify the fuel types, fuel hazards in our county. We update that plan. We've already started this process, although we haven't spending money on it yet. Several months ago, the commissioners gave a letter to the Lewis and Clark County GIS for allowing our county to share our 911 GIS information, where the houses are. We're going to lay that over a map and to see where the homes and structures are in these fuel areas. And based upon that analysis, those are the areas we'll target, try to go out and educate those people in the process of being prepared for a wildland fire. We're also looking at how the county responds, the resources the county has for emergency response, as well as mutual aid agreements between other counties and the state and federal agencies. We'll also look at evacuation routes and how we can improve those, perhaps mark those, or prepare those for that people may get out in type of emergency. That's what the planning process is, and that's how we propose to use our $8,551.26. And have any questions from the commission? I'll be happy to answer.
How will you inform public, say if I lived up in the mountains, and how are you gonna let those people know?
If we have an emergency, we would do several different methods. One would be the reverse 911 system the county sheriff's office has that would ring that number. It only rings landline numbers. The county sheriff's office has to update that system so they can add people's cell number, like they do in Lewis and Clark County. They have a process where you can actually call the Lewis and Clark County Sheriff's Office, give them your name, your physical location, and then your cell number, and then add that into the database. So if they call somebody up in the South Hills in a certain area they're evacuating, and if a person happens to be in Great Falls, they'll look in their cell phone and tell them a recorded message. This is wildland fire, we're recommending you to evacuate. And use that message to tell them where to go, what routes to go, tell them where the fire's coming from, so they go in the opposite direction. And then also probably tell them where the shelter areas that are set up. And the other method in an emergency is the deputies in each county tries to knock on those doors. They'll try to mobilize all their resources, go out and knock on those doors either through deputies or firefighters. And that's how we plan to notify those people. Also put information on the community school radio system. That only goes out about 3 or 4 miles. Those are the primary methods that people use. And most people just see smoke, fire, they get uncomfortable, leave. Don't wait for somebody to tell them. But it all depends on different areas. Any other questions?
Thank you. A lot of questions.
Questions?
Franklin, question?
You probably put those, evacuation things on those maps they have on that book of,
Rural addressing book?
rural addressing, yeah.
Right, what we're taking is the rural addressing information that Nicole Brown has, and we're laying it over our fuel maps. There's different layers. What we do is we start with Google Earth, the photograph of the county, and then we'll lay the grid system over, that would be the sections and townships. Then we'll lay the road system over on top of that, and the rural addressing points. And then we add different layers of fuels, like a heavy type fuels, and it'll tell if it's a grass type fuel as opposed to a heavy timber ponderosa pine. And we're also identifying where there's dead pine beetle, those type of fuels. All that burns differently. We're using those type of maps to target what locations we want to spend the half of the money on and notify those citizens. We're going to target towards specific areas, try to contact those people, either in person through the fire departments, go door to door, as well as we're going to have some broad public messages to the newspapers and advertising. Try to get them both ways. Going to target certain areas as well, try to get everybody wildland fire ready. You know, you can have a wildland fire outside the forest, which we often have. You saw it on limestones last year, grass fire. We're going to involve the National Guard in this updating of the community wildfire protection plan, because they have some issues themselves they need to address. We need to learn how they respond to those fires. We have a limited role out there, as you probably all know, due to the fire range. The rural fire department doesn't respond like that. It's federal land, and the Forest Service has that protection area. But they don't go off the road. They'll fight it with helicopters if it's safe, or they'll let the fire come down to a road and come to that area and catch it out of roadway. It's unsafe. I remember several years ago, probably in the mid-'80s when I first joined the fire department, we went out there with the Forest Service. Like David Nunn was an engine boss at that time. Took a Forest Service engine and we told those guys, don't go off the road, we're not supposed to go off the road. We were hauling water for that. And usually if we go up there, we have an escort from the National Guard. They backed off the road, and in the process of backing off the road, they hit an unexploded ordnance. It blew the tire, the back tire up. They all jumped up and ran off the road. We said, see, don't. Well, that's how dangerous it is. You don't walk up there, you stay out of it. Let it burn.
We can laugh because nobody was hurt.
That is right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did Brenda get you Forest Service and Sheriff's response on the federal lands?
They haven't got any expenses of significant on yet, but in the future, we sure can. Looking for the hunter that had died up there by the Winston area, he didn't die on federal land, although they searched all kinds of areas. She didn't give anything yet, but in the future, she can. You know, hunting season is still in effect, until next Sunday, I believe it is. And then, of course, we have snowmobiles. We have avalanches up there. Several years ago, we had an incident where there was an avalanche. Someone was actually trapped and killed up there. Then we also have, you know, throughout the summer, wildland fires, searching for anybody lost. People running off the road and those kind of things. Well, no, she didn't submit any, but that doesn't mean that she cannot. We're gonna set some money aside for that. Each year in January, we hear from the federal government how much Broadwater County is allocated. The money is allocated from the federal government through the Department of Interior and the Department of Agriculture, and goes to the state of Montana, and then they allocate it to the counties. The counties usually get a notice in January. Right now, with what Congress is doing, I have no idea if we're doing any more Title III money for the counties or not. Your guess is good as mine. They're kind of pushing that can down the road, you know. Haven't made a decision yet. Any other questions? The resolution's all prepared for you, if that's what you want to do.
Madam Chair, I know this is a public hearing, but if there's no questions from the public, and I didn't see any hands, I would be happy to make a motion that we approve the resolution authorizing the spending of Forest Title III county funds.
1 minute, I got a question out
Oh,
there.
okay.
Go ahead, Tim.
Madam Chair, thank you. Tim Ravendall. Madam Chair, if you would take just a minute and explain to folks that don't understand this Title III forest funding and how it's allocated. And the reason I asked the question is just because Broadwater County specifically got into some hot water in the past of not properly administering those funds. And then I guess the second part of the question is are there any local dollars, tax dollars that go with those tax dollars coming from the federal government?
Well, the Title III money comes from the federal government. When the forest used to sell a lot of timber, you can go up in the hills and you can see all the face of Baldy there. They used to have a lot of logging areas. And when that logging started to, the counties and the school districts got a percentage of that money. It came back into the county. Some of it was allocated to the school district, some of it was allocated to the road fund. Well, as those monies started to dry out, in about 2002, I believe, they started this thing called the Rural School Security Act. And then they started allocating some money based to counties that had a history of logging, based upon the number of board feet, and the counties that have a percentage of federal land. Most of the money goes into Oregon and California and Idaho, in those areas. But Montana gets quite a little. And Broadwater County gets anywhere from about $7,500 to about $8,500. It all depends on how much money Congress sets aside for this Title III money. And some of the money goes directly to the other types of programs the Forest Service has. They have a Title I, Title II, and Title III. This is the Title III money that goes directly to the counties. The federal law has been changed several times. The last time it was reenacted was in July of 2012. And it set out those 3 criteria, and that's identified, those same criteria are identified in the first resolution the commissioners passed for carrying out activities under community wildfire community program for educating homeowners, emergency services respond on federal land, and then the third thing is update the community wildfire population protection plan. The local government county agency that administers that is the County Board of Commissioners. They have to propose how they want to do that, publicize that information, and then have a 45-day comment period. You can spend it all in one category if you want to. Some counties have. They've spent all their money in search and rescue operations by the sheriff's office. Some of the counties put it all into fire-wise type programs. Our county suggested, I proposed to them that we spend, at first we try, as the invoices come in from the sheriff's office, or we can't spend any to the rural fire department because that's not a county agency, although that's Broadwater County Rural Fire District. That's a separate entity, just like the solid waste district or the hospital district. It has to be spent on the sheriff's office or search and rescue or anything else that we respond out. And we're going to do that first. That to be our highest priority. What's left, we're going to kind of split it between. We're not too sure how much money we're going to spend on updating the community welfare population plan. What we don't spend on that, then all the rest will be spent on educating homeowners how to use that. Now, anything else? No, there's no money matching that I know of. The commissioners can match if they want to. There's no requirement for a match. It's all straight dollars. If they wanna spend $10,000 on these programs, then they have to come up with another revenue source. And I'm not proposing any type of additional funds to be spent on this.
I appreciate it. For those that don't understand how Title III works, I appreciate you giving that explanation. Thank you.
Any other questions?
John?
Mike, or Lane, we had a question came up earlier today about search and rescue, doing a rescue on a hunter or something that didn't make it, and there was a lot of damage done on the road. Do your thing participate in the cost to rebuild the road and stuff like that?
No, I don't. This money cannot be used for that. You mean for people driving up down the road?
Well, it's for repairing the road, quite an extensive damage for the rescue thing.
Well, I'm not familiar with that, of any
Well,
damage to the road.
Mr. Slifka could tell you about it.
What was that, up there on Missoula's, was going the road, the search and rescue, and it was thawing and freezing, did a lot of damage to the road.
Oh, on private property?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So-
Well, since that's on private property, we can't spend money on that particular thing, but perhaps the.
I think it was all private, isn't it, Elaine? I think every bit of it was private.
You probably know that. I wasn't aware of that issue. Must have put in some ruts when they were trying to
Yeah,
get it in there.
you know how it is, like in the spring
Sure.
breakup, this was
Oh.
a permanent type thing that happened, I didn't see it, but, from what, that's what Bob put a claim in for.
Oh, okay.
In other words, what he's gonna do, he just wants, he'll be reimbursed for the gravel, he's gonna haul it and take care of it himself.
Oh,
As long as county takes care of the gravel.
It's an
And I
issue
think
with the
John's
commission.
question was if they would, if that would fall under this,
After reading the law, I'm not a lawyer, but I don't think so. That wouldn't. That didn't occur on federal land.
No, I think it was private.
It's all private land. I think,
It was a search and rescue, people that did the running back and forth with heavy equipment, I guess, doing all kinds of things.
probably the frost was coming out of the ground or had gone in, or
Yeah, it was,
you can do a lot of damage if you
well,
go across a piece of land that's, you shouldn't be on when it's wet.
well, I don't think you had a choice.
Probably not, you know, that's where that individual was found deceased. I think.
No. Well, I thought it might say something.
Any other questions?
Go for your motion.
I stand on my motion.
second.
It's moved and seconded then that we sign and accept the resolution authorizing the spending of forestry Title III money. All in favor say aye.
I,
Opposed the same. Motion carried.
I'm out of my time. I just will give you an update. We had a LAPC meeting last Thursday. I think about 18, 19 people showed up. Very good meeting. We're gonna meet again in December. And that's gonna be, I believe, the 19th of December, 3 o'clock. And downstairs in the DES office, I have moved this stuff out of the way so that Mike Meyer can access that plumbing issue that needs to be addressed down there.
thank you.
And anything else for the,
Thanks for your job, well done, Mike.
well, thank you very much.
Appreciate it. You want this?
Go ahead, you're fine. You got it?
Hey, Mike,
Told you.
not your resolution? Or does that?
No, she filed that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
She's
sorry,
not.
thanks.
I'll make sure you get one with that. Everything's stamped on the document.
Perfect.
Great seal. Great seal, Broadwater County. Thank you.
Doug? Debbie? Is Nicole here? Randy?
Nicole will be here, Carla will not.
Thank you, Scott. Good afternoon, guys.
Hello.
Go ahead.
So this is about the DOR and, subdivisions down on the, well, countywide actually. I've been reading over the, Supreme Court decision
Come on up.
on this, and looks like DOR tried to stop this and the tax appeal boards are kind of were in favor of allowing it to be used as agriculture instead of real estate property. Just from my probably loose interpretation of how this reads, it looks like DOR was trying to say that it should be classified as
Excuse me, Doug.
real property.
They're saying they can't hear very good back there.
I'll only go so loud.
I just,
But anyway, DOR was trying to get this to be put into real property, and it looks like their main objective that the tax appeal boards and Heideckers had was the definition of effectively prohibit the land to be used as agriculture. And I guess if they're using this as a case study for how they're gonna determine all the other subdivisions, it looks like what we have to look at is if the land was in continuous use as agriculture, and if it totals 240 acres, and in this case, they did have a covenants in effect that would prohibit the land from being used as agriculture or farmland. But according to the ruling, the covenants are only in force if the landowners that are governed by that covenant object. And in this case, there were only 2 landowners, and they were the ones that were farming it, so they, of course, neither one of them objected. So,
Is this for Coulter's Run?
no, this is the Heidecker
Oh, okay.
case in Gallen County, which is what they're saying that they did the Coulter's Run and the SKS. And this is kind of their,
Seems they were using this as their case study, I
right.
think, for the basis for these other subdivisions.
Right.
You know, and looking through this, the Coulter's Run case where it says it does not effectively prohibit agricultural activity. But Doug's correct, it takes a majority, generally a majority to amend those covenants, but if the majority decides that they don't want to follow those covenants, they sure don't have to. The county is not going to jump on board unless it were to ever be added maybe as a condition required, or I'm sorry, a commission required covenant through our conditions of approval. Then, of course, the county would have a say to be able to weigh in on those covenants.
Yeah, it looks like DOR tried to stop it. They just, the tax appeal boards are kind of the ones that were in favor of allowing it to be held as agricultural. And there was another section 18 on this, decision, Heidecker decision, that says that the statute specifically recognized that the market value of any agricultural property derives from speculative purchases that do not reflect the productive capability of agricultural land. So this speculative purchases kind of says drives the legislative intent that bona fide agricultural properties to be classified and assessed at a value that is exclusive of values attributed to urban influences or speculative purposes. DOR retains the ability to evaluate in the future whether BLM continues to use for bona fide agricultural purposes. STAB, which is State Tax Appeal Board, determined that no doubt currently exists on this point. Once Heidecker begins to sell or market lots at BLM, or once Heidecker stops using the property for agricultural purposes, DOR may evaluate anew whether the covenants effectively prohibit agricultural. in our case, I think that there have been lots sold. And, you know, the way I read that, it says that, once Heidecker begins to sell or market lots, or once they stop using the property, it looks like either or, once they do one or the other of those, DOR can evaluate whether the covenants prohibit agricultural as contemplated by the amendment to subsection. Goes into a more lengthy description, but they have sold lots. I don't really see where SKS and Coulter's Run are quite the same as this Heidecker property. It just, to me, it kind of looks like they're just lumping them all together, whether they fit inside the box or not.
Rocky and Judy were here this morning and met with us. And they said that they've been looking around the state for all kinds of different ones for 14.
They said that they decided, the DOR did not to appeal it. That was it. That's what they said here this morning.
Yeah. You know, I'm not sure where you are, if they decided not to appeal it, it doesn't, I haven't seen any kind of appeal mentioned anywhere, but yeah, I think DOR is pretty well consigned themselves to the fact that this is how it is, and they're just gonna deal with it that way.
That's what it kind of sounded like.
I just don't, you know, I would hate to see them go back on any of the subdivisions in Broadwater County. Because of this decision, then I'm not sure how far back they could go if they decided to. Because it seems like the tax appeals are kind of what dampen DOR's value of the property. That had the most effect of anything, is what it looked like to me.
So are we gonna have to go back on SKS and Coulter's Run?
They already have on SKS. They were reevaluating the 2012. I'm trying to remember when the last email I got from DOR was on the 2012 for SKS. It was, I want to say May of 2013. They still had not been billed for 2012 because they were evaluating their property values on it.
Did you ever hear any more, at one time it was mentioned they go back 5 years, have you ever heard any more on that part of it?
No, haven't heard anything on that. And actually SKS, I think the ownership changed on that, I want to say 2.5 years ago. So, I don't think for 5 years, I don't think that should have any kind of a bearing on that.
Well, in SKS, they're not paid any taxes, is that correct?
Right. Well, and part of that might be they've never been billed for 2012. Or still hadn't been billed since it was May of this year. They hadn't been billed for 2012.
By the state.
Mhm.
Why is that?
Because they were reevaluating the classification of them. I'm not sure the exact number that SKS has, but I know I had about 111 of them printed out to rebuild for 2012. and was told to hold off until they finish their evaluation. The last thing I have on SKS here has 237 lots.
Pretty good sized subdivision.
That is. It just,
Did
Yeah.
that belong to Price?
it's, right now it's,
And then we can donate the subdivision.
I can't hear what you're saying.
Would you say that again,
The
please?
property was originally owned by Dykemans. They sold it to McDonald who developed it. Then it went to SKS, which is basically the Dykemans.
I'm not sure what our grounds are, what legal steps we can take to combat this. It's not that I'm against agriculture or anything like that, I just think if you're a subdivision and you're selling lots for a subdivision, and you're a farm, and you're farming, you're a farm, there should be a definite difference.
Exactly.
And the states have it, they went around it apparently, doesn't, you know, it pretty much states in there whether it's ag or farm.
For the.
But on that decision that was made, they pretty much just went around it.
Right, and the way they went around it was with the, from what I can tell, was from the,
One in Galvin
from
County.
the covenants, yeah, the Heidecker one, yeah, the covenants are enforced by the landowners. And if the two landowners are the one farming, they're certainly not gonna put the covenants into effect and put themselves out of business.
Right.
Well, and there's
But
the
it also
ARMs that we were speaking of a few meetings ago, that the 4 qualifications for what makes a subdivision. And both of these meet all 4 of those, but the court apparently looked at the covenants as well, and whereas the covenants do not effectively deny or prohibit agriculture on the property, I guess they just overlooked, or not overlooked, but I guess maybe they superseded the ARMs, which they're not MCAs, you know, ARMs are a little more loose to follow than MCAs. But I would hate to see the commission have to put that into every subdivision, but that's certainly an option, where it's a commission required covenant that these subdivisions effectively prohibit agriculture. And if someone decides they want to have a pig or, you know, some sort of animal for maybe 4-H purposes or, you know, something like that, they'll have to come to the commission and request that. And the commission can act on each of those issues, one by one. But it seems, I mean, this doesn't fix what we have now, but it seems moving forward, you could insert that as a commission required covenant, because then the landowners cannot amend those covenants. Those are commission required covenants.
It's too late though for this.
It's too late for this,
Yeah.
it's certainly too late for this, so it's certainly not a good situation, but maybe something to be aware of in the future, if that's the way you choose to go.
One thing that this Supreme Court decision does say that Heidecker has sold no lots in BLM, and BLM remains in hand grain production. SKS has sold lots, so has Coulter's Run. And
I guess that's
that's where ours are different than this Heidecker.
there's a lot of differences, and I guess that's, I wanted Carla here for the legal, but, you know, since you're here, Nicole, maybe you can answer some of this for me. And the place that my questions is coming from is these other subdivisions, that they haven't yet got to, that could hit this county hard, tax base wise. Heidecker sold no lots, like you just said. They've never even tried to sell lots. They subdivided, realized the economy, and just maintained farming, maintained same ownership. Coulter's Run, which is a district court decision, not the same as Heidecker. They lost their lots to foreclosure. So it's the bank that challenged DOR because they didn't want to pay track rates. But they only had 38 or 41 lots, which means they sold 3. And SKS, there was a nice website selling those lots for a long time. They had auctions that sold lots, and they've got at least, 3 houses
They've
in
got a
there?
nice office.
They've got a very nice office, yes.
Set on the property for marketing.
Yes. So, those are 3 very different situations. And then what about the other subdivisions that we have in this county? And there are a lot of them. Heidecker did an AB 26, and Gallatin County found 4 Heideckers. It was the State Tax Appeal Board that DOR appealed that found 4. No, the State Tax Appeal, Gallatin County Tax Appeal Board found for found for DOR. It was appealed by Heideckers, and the State Tax Appeal Board found for Heideckers, as did Supreme Court. Coulter's Run filed an AB 26. I don't know if it went to the State Tax Appeal Board, but they paid their taxes under protest. SKS never did the AB 26. They never went to the Tax Appeal Board. They haven't paid their taxes. Again, 3 very different things. It does say in here, once they start selling, like Doug was saying, that they may be reevaluated. Well, again, SKS has been selling, so I'm not sure why they are running parallel. Original owner, Heideckers, same owner that owned the land, then subdivided, then remained farming. Coulter's Run, they lost it to foreclosure. Maybe there's some gray area there, but SKS did not lose to foreclosure. Didn't they sell to, didn't McDonald end up selling very cheaply to Dykema's in lieu of losing it to bankruptcy? So there's a new owner, which puts a whole different twist in it. There were no covenants that were opposed. With Heideckers, I guess maybe there were maybe covenants wrong. But anyway, Heideckers paid their taxes, Coulter's Run didn't, SKS, or Coulter's Run did, SKS did. So my question is, legally, do we have an obligation to somehow challenge this because it does not fit? Do we have an obligation to challenge it to protect those other subdivisions that we have and our citizens? And why the heck weren't we notified in August of this? And shouldn't there be some kind of recourse for us in that DOR didn't even tell us about this until the week of the 21st of October? They didn't even come forward with the information on the day they stopped you from doing taxes. It was 6 o'clock at night the following Friday that they bothered to put it in writing that we were going to have our valuations redone. And that wasn't even sent to the commissioner's email, it was sent to our private emails. Not even all of us. I think you and I, Doug, are the only 2 that got emails and your address was wrong. So, I don't know, that's just the way I see it. And I guess my biggest question is, what do we do to protect the citizens of Broadwater County at this point?
That's kind of wishing Carl would be approved, kind of give us a little guidance on that area, because,
Is she back here now? Is she gone all afternoon?
She's gone all afternoon. Nicole does have a copy of the district court decision.
Correct.
That was sent to us by the attorneys, Crowley, but after the period of time for us to appeal. So, again, where does that leave the county?
Then it's a public meeting, I will take questions, go ahead, Paul.
May I make an observation, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Having gone through this as president of a homeowners association in a subdivision, we have gotten a legal opinion that, at least in our subdivision, the majority of homeowners in that subdivision, the majority of owners of lots, whether there's a home on them or not, can vote to change the covenants, or can make a change in the covenants, but it has to be a majority. So in this case, where the original owner owns the majority of the lots, they may be able to make the covenant say anything they want to.
That's true. Kim?
Madam Chair, an observation, I think it's very unfair for you 6 folks to be sitting here at this table discussing legal options on behalf of the taxpayers. Our county attorney continually misses these meetings and has been out of touch with this situation here. And just go on record, it's not fair to the people, it's not fair to you guys. Our county attorney is an elected official that should be here advising you folks on where to go. And it's not happening.
Let me just say, Madam Chair, we're not making any decisions right now, so it's not like we're gonna go off and do something. These questions can be put to the county attorney.
Madam
I
Chair?
think it's very important that we have this discussion, and I think
Madam
those of
Chair?
us here at this table need to be able to kind of immerse ourselves in this and get some answers. The other things that I do want on the table that I think that need to be paid attention to is we met with Judy and Rocky this morning, and Judy said we were mailed a notice at the same time they were. Did you catch that?
But I don't buy it.
Yeah, it was the Monday following, I think is what she said. And I didn't know if I misunderstood or just what took place, but I thought this was the Monday following the first when the names come out. But she talked to you, I guess, or your office, is that what it was?
No, she said we were mailed at the same time. We received mail. The other thing she said is legal decisions are shared with commissioners when decisions are made by the courts.
We never got anything.
Yeah. That's the other thing is the reason we set up, we meet quarterly with Department of Revenue because a couple of years ago, something kind of similar happened, and we talked with a gentleman there at the time and said, let's meet quarterly so that there's never a surprise again. You can let us know of things coming up. And at every single meeting, and Elaine, you asked it today, is there anything coming up that we should know about? You ask that every single time. The meeting before our taxes were due in August, they knew the decision of the courts, both the Supreme Court, which was July, and the District Court, which was August. And the answer was no, there's nothing for you. And then today, we said the legal decision shared with the commissioners when decisions are made by the courts. And these are the reasons that I'm wondering, what is it that is our responsibility to do moving forward? And I'm going to share one other little piece. A couple years ago when the same thing happened, land across north on Price Road that has been in consistent production as ag property was taxed at $58.37 an acre. When they went back to SKS and reevaluated it at that time, Village at Elk Ridge, that property, because it wasn't productive ag anymore, was taxed at 54.21. One went from fallow or grazing to non-qual, which I believe is the least expensive. So because it couldn't be as actively farmed, it appears it goes to the lowest of the ag. So not only are we losing the productive ag land through this, and this encourages this to happen more and more, but we're also getting the tax base at the lowest rate, lower than it was prior to being subdivided. It's just vastly unfair to our taxpayers. It's just simply not right. is my opinion.
Tim, you had a question?
Madam Chair, thank you. Very, very quickly, just to follow up, as you recall, when the phone call was made at noon advising Broadwater County of this new problem, I met you over at the Clerk and Recorder's office and found that Broadwater County was not even part of that process for having the ability to appeal that in a timely manner, as well as DOR making whatever administrative decisions that they did, failing to appeal that decision. We are left holding the bag, Madam Chair, and that still, even though I fully agree with this board that DOR really neglected proper process and duty for your benefit as a representatives of the county, but our legal department here in the county also has some culpability here, and we need to stop that. That's my point. We need to get a handle on it. Because we're just keep digging deeper.
Yeah. John, you had a question?
Yes, Elaine, as you well know, this all went through our local clerk of the court. And if you go over and check the records, you can read it all the way back, even when the decision was made, 30 days, or the time of 30 days to make an appeal. It's all over there. Why didn't you get it? Carla had it. Her system consumes it just the same as the court. It was all right here. How come y'all didn't get it?
John,
Nobody talked with anybody, or is this just some kind of magic,
it never once said Broadwater County.
was said? Well-
It never listed us, Broadwater County.
It listed what we were gonna get clobbered with.
No, it didn't.
Sure it did. Taxes.
But it
Leaving
never
the
said
taxes. The
Broadwater
state
County.
made the decision to make these taxes, then they made the decision, and I challenge it through the system to eliminate it. And why didn't our county attorney, just like Tim said, why wasn't our county attorney all over top of this?
Madam Chair, point of order, can we keep the conversation to the people who have the responsibility to
Yes, we
work this
can.
out?
Well, that is the responsibility. It all went right past where everybody didn't pay no attention to what was going on.
Okay, John, enough. In all fairness to Carla, I do not believe Carla was notified, is my understanding. She got blindsided just like we did. And I feel very strongly that DOR is in the wrong. Very definitely. Are they gonna do anything about it? No. They're not. Because they don't think they did anything wrong.
Madam Chair, was there a request for an Attorney General opinion? Because that was discussed earlier.
I don't believe so. So what are your thoughts, Doug?
It seems like we're on the mercy of them, aren't we?
What's that?
We're on their mercy.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how it appears. I don't think we should be. I mean, I hadn't heard a word about this until the day I was ready to print my tax bills, and check with the Department of Revenue to make sure our amounts balanced. That was the first I heard. I mean, and if I wouldn't have found one veteran's tax bill that he didn't get the exempt status, our bills would have been printed. Which doesn't necessarily mean that it would have avoided this. It would have just given me, what did I say, 237 bills to cancel and reprint, which is quite a job in itself.
I think to
I'm
throw,
not sure that would have avoided any of what's went on.
Yeah.
It is, in my opinion, Department of Revenue just completely blindsided us, dropped the ball, and left us to clean up the mess.
I think to throw up our hands and say, well, you know, there's nothing we can do, or I think that's the absolute wrong answer. If indeed there's nothing we can do, if we're at the mercy, I guess that's the term that was used, to throw up our hands and say, well, we're just at the mercy of, I think that's absolutely irresponsible of us. I think we have a responsibility to realize that we may not get to change anything that's happened here. But we cannot just sit back and say, well, I guess it happened. I think we need to at least address this. I think we need to address it seriously. I think we need to do what we can to be prepared for what this could mean. And I think we need to make sure that we're all in full understanding of what this situation is. No, we're not at the mercy of anybody. We're right now in the driver's seat trying to figure out what this situation is and what we're gonna do about it for our citizens.
I don't think it's fair to the other citizens of Broadwater County to have to pick up a tax base for a company that's looking to make a profit, sell lots, and make money. It's just not right.
I agree, but we can sit here and try to, just like we are, going back over, we're not a lawyers or attorneys. I think it's the county attorney to advise us what, get on the laws and see what we can do. I mean, we can sit here back and forth like this, the group of us here, and, we need the legal advice for her to.
But before
And I know
we
she's
can
been working
go
on it or
for
not, I don't
that,
know.
we need to understand the situation. We need to know what questions we wanna ask. We don't just hand all this to her and say, you figure it out. That's our job. Her job is to direct us legally.
Well, that's what I said.
No, we need to understand what happened and what the issues are, Franklin.
We know that. We know what the DOR did to us.
Do you understand the administrative rule that Nicole was talking about? 'Cause that's a piece of this too.
I think we need a work meeting on just this. And hopefully Carla can be there.
Yeah, sounds like a good idea.
What doesn't work for you all? And that's a bad thing to ask. You're right here with the middle of taxes.
Yeah. Well, we've got the next week and a half will be a lot of taxes coming in. We're gonna be busy. And I know probably time is of the essence, but if we could postpone at least a week and a half, it would be a lot easier on you.
The taxes are due by the 9th, is that correct?
Yeah.
So after the 9th.
We'll be here on the 11th. Do you wanna make the afternoon a working meeting on this? The, December 11th at 1:30?
It works for me. Does it work for you three?
I can make anything work.
Let's do that then.
What's those dates in that safety you don't have?
That's the next week,
Okay. The week of the
16th.
16th, 17th.
So for the purpose of this working meeting, we should have our questions together,
Yes.
is it?
And any history, I mean, what other subdivisions are, they're looking at Pat Fritchie's. I guess there's some talk about contiguous has to be over 40 acres, is that right, or 20?
to fall into the ag category?
Right.
Isn't it 240?
I thought it was, 160 is not a lot, I guess is what it is, for a subdivision, anything greater than 160 acres. But I do know that 240 was mentioned in here, but I don't know if that was just a point of reference in the Heidecker case. They just happen to be 240 acres. I don't know that's necessarily a number.
Judy mentioned this morning that they were looking at contiguous lots of up to 160, starting at either 20 or 40.
I would imagine it would be 20,
Was it 20?
would be the number that they
Rocky
would
mentioned
use.
something about continuous use in 240 acres.
Yeah. Yeah. And the only thing they're looking at is non-qual, class 3.
Mhm.
Regardless, you know, I'm sure that subdivided land is limited to some extent. But, you know, there's another question, is should it be non-qual?
Mhm.
And it was 20 acres, I do have it in my notes. So how many other subdivisions could this affect?
Certainly, because if it is giving the non-qualified ag status, that is definitely the best that you can hope for.
Right?
As a taxpayer,
Yeah.
you would like your property to be non-qualified ag, but that doesn't seem fair that because you're a subdivision and because the property can't be farmed, you can just go ahead and jump all the way to the lowest possible rate.
Yeah. You know, it's like any business. You subdivide land because you see that there is a business opportunity to make money. When that turns south, is it right to then say, well, citizens of that county, they can pay my taxes because I can't sell any lots right now? I mean, no other business gets that kind of protection. You don't see a retail store buy a bunch of red sweaters, and when they can't sell them, go to the neighbor next door and have them buy all the red sweaters from you. You know, it's just, this was a business decision that these subdivisions made, and for DOR to be looking at paralleling these when they're just simpler, no parallels, just to me, just stinks. It stinks of something, I don't know what it is.
Well, and I do not believe when DOR told us they found out the same time we did. I do not believe that. And I would tell it right to their face. Short of calling them a liar, that's exactly what that was. They knew long before that. Well, let's schedule a work meeting then on the 11th at 1:30, if that works for you both. And hopefully Carla will be better and she can be here too. Okay, thanks. Tim?
Just real quick, Madam Chair, in the event that our county attorney cannot be at this working meeting, perhaps it would be wise of the commission to invite Mike can't say his last name, from Mako to participate in this meeting, because he's been involved in it at the DOR level, and if our county attorney isn't up to speed of what's going on there, we would at least have some representation here to get some answers on where we can move forward rather than floundering like we are.
Yeah, thank you.
And I don't think discussing this is floundering, just, I think we need to, again, understand this at the elementary level. Having a discussion, I think, is a positive and productive thing. And I think we need to keep our eye on the ball of what we're trying to do, rather than making this something more like a political issue. So, I am in agreement as on the 11th as well.
Thank you. We'll all just keep digging in the meantime. We'll all just keep digging in the meantime.
Thanks, guys.
I have two sets of minutes here. November 18th and November 20th.
Minutes were sent out earlier this last week, and I will move that we approve.
Well, there were some changes. Let's see, which one is it here? I think the 18th is. I'll read it. On this one, and I think you just got the, this is $40,000 loan, it should be the $400,000 loan, right?
Is there a typo in there?
There.
You're right, it needs another zero.
I think that was. All right,
It's moved and seconded then that we approve the minutes of November 18th. All in favor say aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Okay, I have the minutes from November 20th.
Move to approve.
Oh, I know, that letter from Argenbright and on,
We discussed that,
yeah,
Frank, but-
and that'll go into this
Correct,
minutes,
correct.
today's.
So that's second. It's moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of November 20th, 2013. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. This is when I was sick, so. Okay, we have a half an hour. We'll just take a recess for half an hour. We've been through all the mail and all this stuff.
We didn't finish the mail, did we?
Yep.
Yeah.
That first one, I don't recall going through it, the Medicaid match for mental health. And I think there's some more underneath that. Right here?
Oh, on this one?
Mm-hmm. That one's just a notification, it's a return of contract that we signed, but I wanted to make sure you guys saw that it came in.
Okay, a letter from MDT regarding the Indian Creek crossing. And we signed that sometime back. Oh, we didn't get through all this, I'm sorry. Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks, Deer County Commissioners. Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks, FWP, would like to make you aware of the draft environmental assessment, EA, addressing possible management action in response to chronic wasting disease, CWD, in wildlife. The EA will be released today for public view. This is a rewrite of the original plan that has been in place since 2005, with the primary change to that original plan being removed of depopulation as an option and the addition of an adaptive management approach to disease management. This update reflects the research and the management lessons learned from other areas already affected with CWD in wildlife. FWP did not select a preferred alternate and will evaluate public comments prior to making a final decision. The final decision will likely be a combination of several alternatives that provide some flexibility if CWD is ever detected. Alternative 1 through 4 assume that CWD continues to be absent from Montana Wild. Alternative 4 through 8 outline various actions to be taken by CWD if it's ever detected in Montana wildlife. FWP recognizes the dynamic nature of wildlife populations, ecosystems, and human populations, and knowledge of the need for equally dynamic and adaptive management strategies. FWP encourages you to review and comment on the draft EAE at the following link. Here's the fwp.mt.gov/hunting/public comments/2013 CWD EA-HTML. Got that? If you have any specific questions about the draft EA, please feel free to contact Dave Risley at 406-444-7722 in the Wildlife Division, or contact your local FWP Regional Wildlife Manager.
Fishing people.
Yeah,
Excuse me,
it is.
Madam Chair, have you heard if we've gotten a new biologist for the Townsend?
I have not heard.
Okay.
That is, I placed a call to DEQ on that. They want a water sample for October, but it's apparently not required unless the campground is open for business. This one isn't as of October 1st, so I don't think that that actually applies. And did leave a message this morning. We got that on Friday.
Okay. So we don't need to do anything with it.
Not yet, no.
I don't see a date on this. County Clerk and Recorder and Board of County Commissioners Audit Review Section, Local Government Services Bureau, regarding requirements regarding audit report publishing, responses to audit report findings and recommendations. 1. Audit report publishing requirements. The Montana Single Audit Act, Title II, Chapter 7, Part 5, MCA, requires each audited county to send a copy of their annual or biannual audit report to a newspaper of general circulation in their area. Entity officials will want to request their independent auditor to provide them with an additional copy of the audit report. In addition, the law requires each audited county to send to their appropriate newspaper a summary of significant findings as prepared by the independent auditor. This summary must contain a statement indicating that it is only a summary and it is not intended to be used as an audit report. The summary, which is not to exceed 800 words, must be published, along with a statement to the effect that the audit report is on file in its entirety and open to public inspection. Publication is required to be done 30 days after you receive the audit report. Enclosed is a sample letter to the newspaper regarding the required audit publication and a sample publication. 2. Responses to audit report findings and recommendations. Local government entities are required to notify the Department of Administration in writing as to the actions they plan to take on any deficiencies or recommendations contained in their audit report. This response or corrective action plan is required to be submitted to the Department of Administration within 30 days of receipt of the audit report. If you have any questions on the entity response requirement, please contact our office. And then they're just samples of letters and newspaper legals. There's a book, class on financial statements.
And that in your right hand is the IGT for Medicaid for mental health. The deadline is December 1st.
This agreement is entered into between the Montana Department of Public Health and Human Services Addictive and Mental Disorder Division, herein referred to as the department, whose address is 555 Fuller, P.O. Box 2905, Helena, Montana, and Butte. Why does it say Butte, Silver Falls?
It's actually 3 different items within that paperclip. And the first one is, I think it says at the top that it is a proposed contract. If it has the different mental health agencies in there, of which we are a member of one of those, with the titles, and basically what it's wondering is this something that we want to sign into and sign on to? And this was, of course, emailed to all 3 of us. I just printed it to make sure that we did indeed see it and make some kind of action.
The parties agree as follows. Section 2, purpose of agreement. The purpose of this agreement is to provide county funding for enhanced Medicaid reimbursement for mental health center services. This agreement is subject to the availability of sufficient county and federal monies and is conditioned upon the transfer of county funds directly to the department. The county must certify the funds are eligible for federal financial participation in accordance with 42 CFR 433-51. This agreement is effective July 1st, 2013 through June 30th, 2015, unless terminated by the department in accordance with the provisions of the agreement. The contract may be extended in additional 1-year periods not to exceed 5 years if the parties agree to the extension prior to the end of the term of the contract, and the extension meets the requirements of section 18.4.13 concerning extensions of contracts. Limitation upon monies to be used as a match. The monies to be transferred to the department may be derived from a general mill levy or other legally authorized mill levy, or another source for which the expenditure of the monies generated by the mill levy or other sources are not limited in purpose or are for purposes that encompass the matching of federal Medicaid monies. No portion of the monies to be transferred to the department may be derived from a licensing fee, assessment, or other mandatory payments herein defined as health care related tax. The county may not retain any of the funds designated by the Medicaid supplement payment. In addition, the mental health provider must receive 100% of the payments made by the department, and no such funds shall be returned to the county by the provider. Furthermore, no funds from payments made under the approved Medicaid state plan may be transferred from the participating mental health provider. No aggregate rate of Medicaid reimbursement, including established Medicaid rate payments for all mental health centers, shall exceed the corresponding Medicare rate, if any. The amount to be transferred to the department by the county is the amount that the county would have paid directly to the regional community mental health center, $73,500 per year, a total of $147,000 for FY 2014 and FY 2015. All transfer of funds from county must certify that the funds are eligible for federalist financial participation in accordance with 42 CFR 433-51. All transfer of funds shall be sent to the Department. Attention, Susan Hara, Contracts and Fiscal Officer. At the county's discretion, the total payment may be made in semi-annual or quarterly payments. The county funds will be used by the department as non-federal Medicaid match to increase funding for mental health service centers. Billed and paid through Xerox, the department's fiscal intermediary. Termination. The department may terminate this agreement with or without cause. The department, with 30 days' notice, may terminate this agreement for any of the following reasons. Federal or state law, regulations, or guidelines are changed to interpret in such a way that the provisions of county-generated monies as match for federal Medicaid monies or the implementation of enhanced Medicaid mental health service fees to counties probably is no longer feasible. The department fails to receive the necessary appropriated funds to maintain the current Medicaid reimbursement to the mental health centers. No eligible county funds are transferred to the department. The department is no longer able or allowed to dedicate Medicaid funding to enhance mental health service fees for recipients of Medicaid-funded services. The mental health centers are no longer qualified to receive the rate adjustment payment, or the department is precluded by order of the court of competent jurisdiction from implementing this agreement or the enhanced fees scheduled for counties. Immediately upon termination of this agreement, mental health center fees are subject to reduction. And then it just goes on.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
may I suggest that you coordinate that with the administrator of the hospital, who is also setting up a mental health facility?
Oh, okay. We will.
I don't know if there's an overlap, but we will check and see.
We'll check that out.
What about Mary Ellen? Would that pertain to
Probably.
her?
I would think yes.
Madam Chair, are we still currently without a mental health office that's staffed?
I have not talked to Mary Ellen for weeks, so I don't know that. She will be here in about a week.
Just ask because if we're committing county funds to a facility that isn't there,
No, that's crazy.
something wrong with that picture.
I'll see if Carl gets that. Okay, we have 15 minutes. That'll give everybody time for a potty break.